Back on the Chad Hasty Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. No matter where you're listening, we appreciate you being out there today. One of the bills that lawmakers will be taking a look at, Senate Bill 30, and joining us to discuss a little bit of the opposition to Senate Bill 30 is Will Moye, attorney here in the state of Texas. Will, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm well, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a few articles out about this bill. Obviously, it hasn't captured the attention as some of the other pieces of legislation that's out there, but you and a whole bunch of folks are really taking a look at this as what it could do as far as verdicts go here in the state. Talk to us a little bit about Senate Bill 30 and why you're not a big fan of it.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I know it is Lieutenant Governor Patrick's, it's part of his agenda this term. It's built on a concept of tort reform, obviously. It is built on a notion that small businesses in Texas or mid-sized businesses in Texas are affected adversely by a concept of nuclear verdicts, which are runaway verdicts where a jury evaluates particular damage in lawsuits and awards more money than that person deserved. And I think as a bumper sticker goes, I certainly see how that could be a selling point for folks. But when you really break it down and evaluate on a statewide level what truly happens, and most importantly, I think relevant to the audience of your show and what you do and you do well, is that the tort reform concept is frankly not aligned well with conservative thought.
How so?
At its core, conservatism, we all know. I'm not a card-carrying conservative, but I try to champion myself as a moderate. But, in all truth and honesty, that it bleeds over to conservatism a lot more than it does liberalism. But there's a notion of personal responsibility that matters to us, both from a corporate standpoint and individual standpoint, where accountability matters. When you have tort law in place, there's a measure to make sure that businesses or companies, particularly international companies or out-of-state companies that are here selling products or driving down our roads are held accountable for the harm they cause. When you have tort reform, that kind of undermines that concept of responsibility because the legislature comes in and essentially defines who's responsible and how much they're responsible. There's notions of individual liberty. There's notion of Seventh Amendment rights. There's notions of if you're injured, you have a right to go and evaluate your case from your peers. There's a notion of free markets. Free markets matter. You have, you make an unsafe product, you import an unsafe product, you get held accountable for that. You've got Chinese-made products that are heavily evaluated by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. You've got tons of recalls. Tort reform will allow these products to flow into our communities, injure people with no recourse. You've got cronyism. You've got a handful of insurance lobbyists that want to kind of generate more profit, not pass those profits on to the people of this state by way of premiums. You've got, a whole host of traditional conservative values that become undermined immediately when you start to evaluate what tort reform truly affects and that's the people of the state.
Is it the phrase, tort reform, is it being used as too much of a catch-all?
I think it absolutely is. I think if you look at the data and you get past kind of the fear and you look at what truly the outcomes are in the state, into these nuclear verdicts, that's a trademark term by a very skilled lawyer in California who kind of invented that term. He actually trademarked it. But yeah, there's this, this happened to this poor person and there was a runaway verdict. The reality is another conservative principle is free and fair elections. We've heard that for the last 5 years. It's been an important rallying cry. It matters to people. That should matter to people. And we elect judges in this state. We elect appellate judges in this state. And there's measures in place where the judges that we elect in our communities that are serving us have a say in an outcome. And with these current tort reform bills that are pending in Austin, judges in the state are deprived of being judges.
So, in particular, what would SB 30 do, in your opinion, if passed?
Well, in its basic tenet, it's a cap. I know that because of the Texas Constitution, a lot of your audience might remember the Med-Mal days of 20 years ago. And that's a constitutional amendment to put in caps. People of Texas have to say, yes, that's good for us. We vote for that. We allow that, as opposed to our representatives doing that for us. there is a cap in place. It limits medical billing recovery in Texas courtrooms. It completely undermines the ability of, for example, a sexual assault victim from having any compensable damages, because they're not going to have, a broken arm, you have medical bills. With sexual assault, you often don't. And there's a tie to the medical billing cap to what non-economic damages, pain, suffering, mental anguish, can be awarded by jury. If you have an explosion in Houston, Texas, or on the Gulf Coast, Beaumont, Orange, et cetera, and you've got folks that are burned, badly maimed, this specific bill takes categories of the damages away from that individual and that individual's family, and that's not conservative.
Visiting with Will Moye here on the Chad Hasty Show. Obviously, it's SB 30 is the lieutenant governor has said it's one of his priorities. I know he got a lot of back and forth. It's had a lot of back and forth being played out in the news media. Where do you think this is going to go in the future in both the Senate and the House?
It's going to pass the Senate. In fact, I think it actually passed the Senate floor last week, and there was a statement made by the lieutenant governor of his, happiness that it did so. And it's his piece of agenda. He should be happy. He sponsored it, essentially. The House is where I think the fight's going to be. There's a committee hearing next week, I believe, on the 30th, where the Judiciary Committee will take up argument, public comment on this bill within their committee, and then it'll ultimately, with either a rewrite or a committee substitute, hit the House floor, and they'll have to reconcile that against the Senate bill that's passed. But the Senate bill is Senate Bill 30, the House bill is 4806, and it's been tweaked a little bit since it was first heard, but there's still some things that are in it that I think should give the people of the state great concern. All
right. Well, thanks for your time today. Appreciate you taking a little time to join us, and we'll be keeping an eye on this as it moves forward in the legislature.
You do a wonderful job. We appreciate the opportunity to come on and visit with you and your guests.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's Will Moye here on the Chad Hasty Show talking about SB 30. There's a lot of back and forth on that one, as there is on a lot of these, on a lot of these, bills that are out there that have to do with, reform and also, look, even some of the priorities by the lieutenant governor that he's put out there in this session. Now, there's been some pretty controversial ones, banning THC completely, SB 30. There have been some others that have really gotten some people debating whether or not it's good legislation. I mean, one of his other priorities is the $5 million towards film incentives. So just because it's a priority may not always mean it's the best piece of legislation. We've seen a little bit of that in this session. That's for sure.